also talk about other places besides Alaska, but mostly it's Alaska themed.
Alrighty, folks. Welcome back to the Mushing Alaska podcast. Sean, welcome back to land. Good to see you, dude. For anyone who's not watching, Sean has blessed me with this wonderful head of hair. We are complete opposites right now, fully shaved. Mine's looking nice and, closest possible to the skin. Sean's over here kind of slightly throwing it up, but like trying to pretend that there's like a comb over there or something. I don't know. But anyways, dude, good to see you, man. How's it going?
Oh, pretty good. Just enjoying some time on the porch here and the sunshine and the trees and everything's so green and toasty. So yeah, it's good to be back, and it's been pretty I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little bit special, but it's just I find it difficult to come back into things, and it's not like I was gone that long. I was literally gone for like a month and 2 weeks maybe, and it just feels so like a little bit overwhelmed with just like summer's coming to a close a little bit, and I got to figure out moving and I got to figure out, our mom's coming to visit, and that's a thing, and trying to unpack and just we just went to the music festival. I'm packing a little bit too much in. I feel like for when I get back, I would have, in hindsight, probably rather had like just 10 days to just be
Press
in the neighborhood,
Yep.
I'm here right now and enjoying it very much. And yeah, it's good to see you. It's good to see you, man.
Right on, dude. Yeah. Again, anyone who's not watching, Sean just casually sitting on the back porch here. He's got like the chest hair poking out, but he's got like the zip up hoodie going. It's a vibe, man. It's a vibe. Makes me want to can I loosen my shirt a little bit and show off some of my chest hair? What's the hit me with so we got a cold front. I don't even mean like a cold front, but essentially it's been raining a lot here. And we've got some fall-like temperatures, kind of dipping into the the mid to upper 60s, which for August 5th in Atlanta, Georgia, that is very atypical, we'll say. So I was walking the dog this evening, and I was just like, I wonder. It made me think. Like I walked out, I was like, oh, this is my first time feeling some of this. I'm used to like the 90s and above. So yeah, what's it like there?
Right now I actually have a thermometer. Hold on. It is 80 degrees. Feels warmer.
80 degrees. It is officially hotter in Alaska than it is in Atlanta. It's literally right here, 69 degrees. Look at that.
Wow. It's great. That's a great number. Yeah, 80 and sunny, and then at night it drops down to 50-ish. And it's been like randomly raining today, and then this is kind of
just 50s to 80s. That's not bad.
Random. Yeah, it's good. It's fair weather. I feel like we got it like 3 to 4 weeks left of that, and then you're gonna start seeing leaves turning yellow.
Yeah. Nice. Well, right on, man. It's good to have you back. Before Sean left, we actually recorded our next guest, Jessie Holmes. I was thinking I might have to do an intro solo, but this summer has proven to be a busy one for myself, and so I kind of waited until I was close for Sean to be back to do that. And before we get into Jessie, round 2 with him, first time for me, but second time for the podcast. wanted to hit on a couple things of note that we haven't really discussed since the last pod. And the first thing being, we were talking about it. We don't necessarily have crazy details, but there were some fires that were, kind of affecting the Robinsons and the area that they live in. I don't know if you wanted to kind of talk a little bit more about that, Sean, but figured we would mention
Yeah,
it at least.
I haven't talked to them this summer, but they were updating people on Facebook, and I kind of logged into Wi-Fi when I could when I was fishing, and saw that the fire was basically right across the street, which is a highway, but right across the highway from them, and they were ready to evacuate for several days, and then I think at one point they did evacuate, and then the fire never ended up crossing the highway. And this is like, I would, if you're getting your news from me on this one, maybe look elsewhere, but that's the best information I can do. And it was cool. I saw pictures of Wally going and meeting up with the firefighters and bringing puppies over to them, and they were super stoked. Oh, sick, I get to hold a 2-week-old puppy, and it's a win-win. You get some socialization for those little munchkins as well, and yeah, lots of puppies up here this time of year, Brennan. It's fun to see those puppy photos from all the different kennel social medias throughout the summer.
Nice. Yeah, honestly, speaking of that, I just saw today on Jesse's on his social that Polar, and I don't remember the other dog, but they had their babies today, I think, or recently. So yeah, 'tis the season for all the breeding programs, if you will.
The potatoes, the little tiny potatoes.
The little tiny potatoes. Hey, let me get a little spud, a little cheese, a little sauce on the side.
I mean, dude, I feel like can speak pretty confidently for anyone who's ever been around a puppy. Just the new puppy smell. It's just, I mean, I don't know what they're doing, not coming out with a deodorant or a cologne with the new puppy smell, but it is a special thing. That puppy breath, it's a real thing.
Oh, that's hilarious, dude. That is hilarious. I don't know what you're talking about, and I don't know really if that makes me interested in getting.
I mean,
close
it's not. I'm not saying like the day they're born. I'm saying like those first few weeks. All the guests that I've interacted with in tourism over the years, they say the same thing. It's real. It's not like roses and candles, but it's definitely better than my dog's breath right now, which, boy oh boy, is not a pleasant aroma.
Swenson does not appreciate you talking about it like that, sir.
We're working on it.
All right, and then the other piece of news, I think it was like a couple weeks after you hit the road or hit the water. There was the 2026 Iditarod signups, and we had 24 total signups with 6 rookies. And so I was kind of interested to see what that number would look like, but I guess that is kind of on par for what the last few years worth of signups have been, I guess, really since post-COVID. Some names that, let me just double check, but I don't think I saw Milla on there. So that leads me to believe that that's a pending name. We talk about it with Jesse on this episode, but Dallas did not sign up. And I wanted to ask you, Sean, in the past, I feel like Dallas usually signs up at the picnic, but has he signed up post picnic before? Are you familiar?
I don't know. That's a good question. I would say that he's on a long list of people that I expect. Well, I wouldn't. I'm still feel like 50-50 on his sign up, but there's going to be at least 10 more people signing up. I would think.
You're saying 10?
I would think so. Yeah.
Holy 10?
That's my. I mean, that's my Vegas line. I guess I could be wrong.
You're setting the over under at 10?
9.5. We'll set it at 9.5.
9.5, dude. I am taking the under big time. Bro.
Taking the under?
Yeah.
All right, let's mark the date.
All right.
Today's we're recording August 5th, so
August 5th.
What is the cutoff?
9.5.
Cutoff is like November or something like that. So
yep. Before that goes up to whatever.
And really, there's been people signing up in January too. Like last year, I thought like maybe Paige or somebody signed up like really late. So, there's the first door closes, and then there's like you can pay a little extra and sign up even later. So yeah, I'm taking 9.5. I'll take the over on that, dude.
Taking the over. I'm taking the under big time.
All right.
Yep. So I take the under. Sean takes the over. All right. More signups. So you're saying that means you're taking 34 total signups minimally. And I'm taking 33 or less.
All right.
And I stand corrected. Mila did sign up. But I guess maybe she wasn't at the picnic is what it was.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see, there are some folks of the podcast that are back on. So let's see, just looking at it, we had Paige on, she's back, Gabe Dunham, Riley, Lauro, Jesse, Keaton, Ryan Reddington, Bailey, Chad. That was one that I was excited to see. I'm glad to see Chad Stoddard is back. And I'm curious to see how he's going to do running Martin Buser's team. I'm curious if you're aware on that one are him and Roan both like training out of Martin's kennel, or does Roan have his own setup?
I believe Roan has his own setup and his own tour and property and dogs. And then Chad works at Boozer's place, and he's got like 9 dogs that are going to be eligible that he owns, but they live in the same dog yard that are going to be eligible for running Iditarod next year, but they'll be young. They'll be, yearlings to 2 years old. I think it was, it's close. And so that, there's going to be some of them that probably aren't going to, it'll be too young for them, for some of them. And for some of them, it might be right. Or maybe he's got, it's a good breeding, So I think he's going to cater his training and his race strategy to try to get all those guys to the start line and as far down the trail as they can. So I don't think it sounds like, and you never know. Cause I mean, sometimes these dogs, there's young teams and then they click in the race and, you take it slow and everybody else is hot out the gun. And, maybe you'll see him pop up into the top of the race, but it sounds like it's more of like expose the young dogs to this trail and to this long journey and not necessarily go out there and try to win. It's not the year for that for him.
And just to make sure I was clear, because I don't think I heard you were talking about Roan.
No, I talked about Roan at first. I said he has kennel with his own dogs, and that Chad has 9 yearlings that are about 18 months old at the time of the start line in 2026. And that they, he's going to do his best to get them all to the start line. And, I think his training is going to be adjusted to meet their needs, because those are his dogs and he's gonna either whether it's Boozer's dogs, which I'm assuming it will be, but it's not like that's been decided and yet. And but there's plenty of dogs that he can use there and at other neighboring kennels to fill out the team. But I think like what he wants most is to have his dogs, as many of them as possible, get to the start line, which means, just like a little more chill training.
Yep.
Not going too crazy with mileage
but he's already like his social, he's been very active ever since he signed up. Like his social's been active with showing him running the dogs. Obviously not for long distances right now, but I mean, I don't know, man. Chad has been nothing but impressive for me when we talk about, his racing and his race career specifically. It's been short, so there hasn't been like a lot of races, but if there's someone to get it done with a younger team, I wouldn't be surprised that, if he does well. And anyways, we could speculate all about all this, but I'm excited to try to get him back on. I would love to just catch up with him and try to, just see what he's been up to the last few years race wise. Obviously he hasn't been doing racing, but like just catch up with him since we haven't had him on in a while.
I think that what he's looking to do and what a lot of people will do with young dogs is they're just so amped up at like hookup time, and they're like, they don't know that they're training for 1,000 miles, right? It's August. And so he's trying to get them hooked up in the harness as many times as he possibly can, doing super short runs. And so like, if you can log in doing that 100 times, before the year ends, or before, I don't know, you can log in as many times as possible, then it'll help them conserve energy and just help them be a slightly better long distance dog. So I think when you're seeing he's getting after it early, it's not like he's out there, Jessie Holmes, who's notorious for doing 30-mile runs in August last year. That was, at least, he's not doing that yet, but he's got a veteran team, and so those dogs are chilling going 30. Whereas I guarantee you, Chad's dogs could go 30 right now, but they would come back a little like whoa, that was a lot, and maybe have some aches and pains from it. So he's just trying to hook up low miles, but a high quantity of those low mileage rides.
That makes sense. Another one that I was excited about, Thomas Varner is back.
Yeah, I think to my understanding, it's kind of like, I'm curious to see, but I feel like he's going to be, in the vicinity of. Sure. I'm curious to see if he's going to be around the expedition guy, but if that guy, like, is how far back is he going to be in the expedition class? All those questions still we don't really know. But
honestly, I'm wondering if maybe we can try to
like he's done all of like this expedition class guys mushing experience has been through one way or another, whether like directly or not. I think it's mostly directly through Thomas. So they're very well acquainted. And so I'm interested to see like if he's like, all right, man, I've prepared you for Iditarod. Here you go. Best of luck. And you got your expedition class thing going on. I'm going to go and try and defend my 2020 win. Or if he's like more like just kind of going to be traveling with him, maybe. But I doubt that, because now that I say it out loud, that means he would be in the expedition class too, which
right.
He won't be.
No, I think it would be interesting. I would like for us to reach out to Thomas and see if like it'd be great to catch up with him again. Another one that's been in the race before. We haven't seen him in a few years. So there's just catching up with him from that perspective, but also he maybe can shed a light on what it's been like, I don't know if it's training,
that's a really good
partnering,
idea.
the partnership with Shell, whatever you want to call it. But that could be an interesting one if we could get him on. So yeah, we'll have two, as of now, we'll have two former winners in it
Nice.
with Jesse and Thomas, pending possibly a Dallas with
And Ryan's in it too, right?
Oh, excuse me. I stand. Yes, of course. Yep, Ryan. So that's 4. So, or potentially 4, but there's 3 for sure. So yeah, that'll be that. And then I don't know if you want to move into talking a little bit, giving a little preview of our time with Jesse.
Yeah, it was super enjoyable. I feel like, you know, the conversation flowed nicely. When me and Jesse did it together in person a year or 2 ago, it was like I'd never done an in-person one really. I don't think he had done one. We were a little like, it was probably a little like anxious and like us a little nervous and stuff. And so I think that, and then also just I've seen Jesse around enough times, that I feel like a little more cozy talking to him. And then, uh, you got to meet him for the first time virtually on that, and he was super stoked about that. He's been talking about, man, we got to get another one with Brendan on there we've mentioned that a couple times since the last one. And so it was great to get him on. And then me and Jesse ended up going like literally a day or 2 later and floated the Jack River here. And it was super fun. We went on, it was like a, few mile hike with the boats on our backpack, and we floated, and it was like the biggest, whitewater I'd ever done, which is not saying much. That's like saying your longest sled dog race. It was, but it was a very exciting, fun and little micro adventure, and it was cool just getting to hang out with Jesse out in the wilderness for a few hours. And he's a good dude, and I'm just happy that he's an Iditarod champion, and he's going to continue to do this thing for the who knows how long, but at least for the next few years.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was a great time. It flew by. I'm sure we probably could have easily gone for 2 or 3 hours with him.
Yeah,
but just want to circle back. Like maybe you got it was unique to do that one in person, but for me on my end as a just like a listener viewer, I thought that you guys did a great job, and I couldn't really tell that maybe it was awkward or whatever. But yeah, for me, it was nice just to meet him. Sean, when you first did that one with him alone, you told me back then that he was like kind of a little bit sad that I wasn't part of it. So it was nice to just finally get to do that with him, and do that, now that he is a champ. That was like an even better reason to have him back on, and what was interesting about our time together is, in the past we have a lot of people on and we really start talking about the racing, and like even like in our last episode with Sam Lalonde, I felt like it was maybe one of the first times she was recounting it with like someone else that she hasn't seen in a while, that's like part of the mushing scene. And so like we really like dove into it and got a lot of great detail from her about her rookie experience and all of that. With this one, we didn't even barely talk about the Iditarod. We talked about a lot of different things. Jesse kind of gave us his opinion on it wasn't really he gave us his opinion. We asked him about the expedition musher with Shell, and we all barely know anything. I feel like we all feel like there's a lot to come there, but like it was just such a good time with him. And I'm glad that you guys got to go out after that. Like part of the episode, we talk about the rafting. And so I think that led to an offline conversation afterwards. It's like, dude, we should just link up and go. So that was fun. It was nice to meet him. As is the case with most of our guests, it was a great time. And, that would be another person that I would look forward to meeting when I return to Alaska. So, I don't know if saying anything there sparked any other memories of our, any points you want to make from our time with Jesse.
No, it was great. I loved that. I almost kind of want to do that more. Like, we could talk about Iditarod a lot, and especially I think it's really cool to talk about that each musher specific race, especially as rookies, but to, someone who's done it as 5 or 7 times, how many ever times he's done it. It was cool to just like kind of leave that, like obviously we're going to see the documentary, which by the way, that came out. I haven't seen it yet, but like everybody's getting to see his championship run at a high quality level of production through the Greg Heister and the Insiders. And so it's like, well, we don't need to do that. Let's fucking hang out with Jessie. And so that was exactly what we did.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I just was double checking that was his 8th one this year. Yeah, I mean, like, we recorded it last month or in June, and like it was a few weeks away from the premiere of the Iditarod's recounting of his wins. So it's like he's like, I've just talked about this a lot, and I mean, yeah, the conversation was so good that like, we didn't really need to bring it up. It was just it was a good time with him, and we hope that, we hope that you all enjoy the conversation we had, and thank you all as always for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next one. Alrighty, folks, welcome back to the Mushing Alaska podcast. We're excited to have our next guest on. Welcome on 2025 Iditarod Champion, Jessie Holmes. How's it going, man?
Hey, Brendan, how's it going, bro?
We're excited to have you on. Sean had you on originally alone on the first time we had you on, and I thought it was such a great time, and I was like, man, I missed out on meeting you, so I'm glad that we could finally get together, the three of us, and yeah, man, congratulations on your Iditarod win this year, man. I'm sure that was a big goal of yours. So yeah, just excited to have you on though. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, it's I definitely feel like I know you because I watch all the podcasts and I watched a lot of you guys race analysts stuff with Amanda and Eddie and yeah, so just feel like I know you like I do Sean.
Awesome. Awesome. Well,
And
appreciate
thank you for the congratulations. I appreciate it. It was definitely, the biggest goal I could reach in mushing and very proud of it.
definitely. Yeah, we'll get into all of that. We appreciate you supporting the podcast as well and tuning in and watching and all of that. So yeah, before we press record, we were talking about doing some pack rafting that I had seen in your story, and you were telling some stories that I thought the people tuning in might want to hear. Just kind of tell us about your setup, and just I was learning a little bit about pack rafting myself because as you were saying, like it's a style of I guess like a kayak or whatever that's not typical to what we might see down here in the lower 48. So yeah, just kind of fill me in a little bit on that.
Yeah, pack rafting, it's a thing that was come up with in Alaska. We got a lot of rivers you can access, but you're going to have to hike into a lot of these places, and there's some really good whitewater, throughout the state, kind of a lot in my area. And when I moved out here, there's two things that I wasn't into and didn't plan on getting into that moving onto this river just kind of opened me up to was fly fishing and pack rafting. I'd see people going down the rivers in the pack raft, and I had friends that did it, and yeah, I just kind of jumped right in and was like, this is a pretty cool thing to add to the excitement of living out here. It's also a really good way to see the country around me and travel. And they're amazing rafts. They're made by a company called Alpaca, and they're designed to break down, and everything you need fits in your pack. Your overnight stuff goes in the raft itself. It has a waterproof zipper, and first thing you do is kind of load all your kit back into there when you're setting up to go. So your kit is in your tubes. And you know I've run class 4 whitewater down in Oregon. I went on a trip down there that had a few class 4, a lot of class 3 plus. Big river though. Around here it's a lot of creeks and there's a lot of consequences. Even if it's a class 2 or a class 3, it's still very consequential to, you know, improperly have a bad swim if you come out of your pack raft. You're strapped in there with thigh straps for control, and you know, use all the safety measures of any whitewater, dry suit, helmet, you know, good whitewater paddle. And, you know, your skill is not to roll it like a kayak. If you go over, you have to be able to get back and not lose your equipment, your paddle, your boat, and, you know, re-enter your boat, you know, or be able to swim out to shore without getting your legs entrapped in anything, because there's a lot of fast moving. There's not a lot of pools like there are on rivers, down big rivers. It's just continuous whitewater. So, you know, you got a long ways before you hit something calm to, you know, it's pretty wild. I love doing it. It's a lot of fun.
In the season, that I would imagine the season's kind of short on that, right? Is just during the summertime, or is this something you can do like, you know, throughout the year?
Yeah, people do it worldwide. They go over to New Zealand. You know, it's become a big thing. You know, it's a lot of people in the lower 48 doing it, and some people take it to a, you know, really high level with class 5 and waterfall drops, and, you know, it's a very capable vessel. And for me, you know, like I like keeping it in that class 3 range. I'm not into it for the adrenaline junkie side. I just love being on the water. You know, I grew up being pretty into extreme sports and, you know, surfing, and so it's really fun for me to be out on the water, because when I moved from Nenana, I was in a boat every day. I had a boat, had a fish wheel, you know, living on the river, and it's just like my way up here of being able to travel the rivers. And then you get a lot of good hiking in. You know, we hike in pretty far into some really beautiful places you just would never see otherwise.
Nice. That's awesome. That's awesome. Um, so one thing I wanted to follow up with you about, and I was just kind of revisiting a little bit of your first episode with Sean, and I was curious, you guys talked a lot about, you know, you had that injury, and I was wondering if you like if you ha still have any residuals of the accident that happened, or if like your body like fully healed and you're just like n not at all hindered. And I ask because when I visited Sean, this is probably, so what, Sean, you ran in 20 and 21, so I think this is 21. I on a snow machine, I fell off and tore up my shoulder, and like here I am like 5 years later and my shoulder still's killing me. So I kind of was thinking about that. I was curious, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, that was like a real life-shaping event for me, you know, and yeah, I feel really fully recovered this year. So, you know, my weight wise, like the couple of years I went into Iditarod 140 after the injuries, because I lost all my upper body muscle mass, you know, from not being able to use it. And I trained harder than I had ever trained in my life to win the Iditarod that year. I was all in, you know, because I saw death. You know, I saw how much my dream meant to me, because it was all going away so fast, you know? And so it really lit a fire under me, but it come at a cost, you know? And I feel like I really paid that cost the next year. I was a kind of a physical wreck towards the end of the race, and I was 144 pounds starting. This year I was 157 pounds starting the race. It
Yeah.
says a lot. It's really hard for me to put weight on. Biggest I've ever been was 167, and I was running 100 miles a week. You know, that really didn't come off because I worked physical labor so much. So I stayed muscled up. So that's like the heaviest I could ever be. So being 157 going into the race gave me a lot of confidence. I felt like I had more energy this year, and I really did a good job of prioritizing my health and recovery as that was the big thing I needed to fix in order to win, in my opinion.
Can talk a little bit about your recovery tactics? What I feel like we had Bailey on. We talked about his cold plunging, and I think he has a sauna set up as well. Are you doing the same kind of thing, or do you have like a yoga routine? What's t talk to me here. Or you know, if you don't want to share your secrets, you don't have to either.
No, man, you know, like I've decided just to be open about secrets that I have that help me to succeed, because I want to see everybody succeed. And if somebody can take a little thing from, you know, the challenges that I've went through and overcome, and that's wonderful. After I got third place, and I was in the lead into Unalakleet with Dallas, and I fell apart physically, and I just didn't have what it took. I was like, I have to make some changes. And I've always lived a life centered around, being healthy. I grow my own food. I like to hunt and fish and eat a clean diet, and I'm an athlete. But, I knew that I needed to go home and prioritize my mental health through all I had been through, because it all had accumulated, and my physical health had to increase. So I decided that I wasn't going to do anything that I didn't want to do that summer. I made some pretty good money with dog sales and racing, and I was like, I'm going home. I want to win the Iditarod more than anything. So I was out here alone all summer for the most part, no handlers. The relationship with the dogs and like working with the dogs, like I wanted to be with them all the time. So I started hiking with the dogs all the time. And I was up to like 4 or 5 hour a day, with groups of 8 dogs. I was doing 20 hours of hiking plus my running a week, because the running thing was coming slow. I wanted to get back in running shape, but hiking all that volume allowed me to put a high aerobic base on without putting the high stress of the running as much. And so I just ran here and there where I could. And then I started hiking faster, where I was actually kind of hike running, a trotalope, as you'd say in the dog world. Then I didn't even do my garden, to be honest, because I was like, I didn't feel inspired for that. And I was like, well, dude, you don't have to. Do what's important to you right now that's going to lead to what you want the most. And so I really just keyed in on my relationship with the dogs, keeping them active, hiking for a couple months and keeping a little bit of harness work going, and like just being out there in the wilderness with those dogs together, like healed me. And it really just boosted our bond. I didn't think our bond could be better, but it really was a big part of my training to win the Iditarod, was all that loose time with them hiking. They cover the other day I was up on the ridge. I did 15 miles after they ran 3.5 miles in harness. I turned them loose, watered them, and then we started hiking up in the high country, gained 3,000 feet elevation, 15 miles on my feet, jogging and hiking. And I mean, I want to put a GPS tracker on these dogs, because I believe that they're doing upwards of maybe 60 miles, because they're moving so much more than me, and I'm moving a lot. So I'm going to do that this summer. I'm going to put a little GPS watch on the collar and see how far these dogs are actually covering. And they're just having so much fun being with each other and being dogs. And, it's an amazing reward that I can give them after a hard season. But it also really plays in keeping that aerobic base high year round. So we don't have to start from, a dog that can only run 1 mile and overheat in August when it's warm. We're going to be going right into 10, 20, 30-mile runs pretty quickly, I think, come that time of year.
Nice. Nice. Well,
The,
Sean, please.
I'm chiming in here, but
Yeah.
I love, something that's not everyone has the luxury to get like that, those hours hiking with your dogs and just having them loose and running around, because a lot of them, you've had this awesome success and you've gotten to get, some, maybe you adopt out a couple dogs, get some money there. You obviously get your prize money from the Iditarod and the Kobuck and the Copper Basin, and so you've been able to focus more time with your dogs, whereas maybe some of the other mushers have to go and do their tour business, focusing on that in the summer, or fishing or construction or whatever. So those little getting the dogs able to physically just be loose and running around. It's Brendan's knows with all the exercise he's doing is, they're jogging, swimming, biking, hiking, like all those. You don't want to do too much of one thing. So it's cool to get them out and
Right.
and kind of get them a more dynamic exercise. And then of course, like mentally, it's just, they're working dogs. Dogs love to work, but it's also, they love to just go and like be dogs and smell the smells and take it all in. And like, there's not really like a measurable, it's hard to measure like how that feeds into them performing into next winter. You couldn't really quantify it, but it does do something positive, and So yeah, and of course there's the connection that you guys make on those hikes and those little moments that of telling them are a good boy, and they come back to you when you see him on the opposite ridge line that's, a mile away. So that's
Yeah.
cool to hear, and we've
Yeah.
been loving seeing all your videos and photos on socials, and as I'm sure thousands of other people have too.
Yeah, I'm not really great with the social media thing, but like I do it from like from my heart for the fans, of me, the fans of the sport. And I just love showing that. I love showing how happy these dogs are and the deep relationship that you can build with them. And yeah, I'm learning a lot more over the years of how to successfully implement this into a big part of my training, and to the point to where I feel like it might be more valuable than some of the training techniques we use in fall training and in winter. It's yeah, I see a lot of really good things coming from it. And one thing I've been kind of keying in on is, how I set the groups up that I take really leads ultimately to the success of not having that dog a mile over there on the ridge line, and making sure I have that leader in the group. That swing dog is still kind of in the group, those ones that I know I can trust to kind of keep everybody else there. And then the family genetic aspect of my kennel has like really changed over the last year. As in, I have under 50 dogs now. They've like I've narrowed it down to these like family groups that like almost every dog here has, either this dog is a grandparent and a father, or another dog named Clipper is a grandparent or a mother or a great, and there's great grandchildren of them, and then there's just a few other dog breeds spiced in there for genetic diversity breeding down the line. So that's really cool seeing them in these little family groups and how much that helps with keeping them close to you. Another thing is the running them in the harness for a few miles until they get warm. Like on these like 60-degree days, they're going to get a little warm, but I'm never going to let them get too warm. And then we're going to stop. And that kind of takes the edge off of them, because if you ever turned a bunch of dogs loose, they just explode out of the yard at breakneck speed. And I'm like, whoa, calm down. So I kind of like taking the chaos out of it with, you know, either just taking a few dogs when I hike out of the yard so it's not madness, or taking the group of 8 dogs in the harness, taking them for a mile or 2 or 3, whatever's safe, and then unhooking them. And it also allows me to get to other trails on the other side of the road that go up into the high alpine country. I like being up there because I can see a long ways away and make sure we're not running into a bear or a moose or a caribou. I bring some binoculars with me, and I kind of be smart about where I go and where I travel to avoid any kind of mishaps out there. But
That's
we do get the porcupine thing. It's happened. I've learned to carry all my kit with me so I can work in the field if I have to. And you know, it has a little bit of dangers. I don't recommend that everybody just goes and turns their dogs loose and heads out into the woods with it. But there are a lot of things that could help with that. Definitely, I try to keep these dogs, active, because you know how sled dogs get. They get really they go ballistic when they're not getting ran sometimes, and they start destroying their houses and making a lot of noise.
yeah,
I
I
like to keep them fulfilled and moving in the summer.
I really like the run them in harness like 1 to 3 miles out of the yard. I mean, because I love taking the dogs, out on a hike, but it's so stressful for me and for the dogs. I feel like just like, all right, I got to get like 4 dogs, and you pick your 4 dogs, and all the other ones are like, oh, I wanted to go too, and you're like, you get to go next time, and then you get back to the yard, and then
Yeah,
when they sniff the yard or they can hear the yard on the way back, I'm assuming you get back
they
to
go
like,
ahead of you.
and you run them in harness back, maybe, or maybe not, but yeah. So he said he does,
Exactly.
and so that's the most where things can happen, where it's too much excitement and a little stressful for the dog yard, where you hook up the dog team in harness. It's controlled, something you've done way more times than hiking, and then you get them out there,
Yeah.
and then it's just you and your team, and you can turn them loose, and it's like anticlimactic. They're like, oh, cool, we're loose, no problem. So I never
Yeah.
thought about that. It makes way too much sense though. So that's a good info.
Yeah, I just came up with it last year, and it I think that what's going to be interesting to see is I think that it's like making a better association with their job. I mean, we know they love their job. We all see that, but you know, whenever they're using their job as a tool to go like have fun and run free, I think that it just gives an even better association with their job. They're like, hey man, and that's one thing I think people view me as a really hardcore trainer. I do train a lot, but I have a lot of dogs to train, and I spread that training throughout a lot of dogs, and I believe in, training the right amount, definitely not the over amount.
I
And I think it's just good for them to have that reprieve away from it while staying healthy, but like just being dogs, it's really cool.
Yeah, Brendan. So the Jesse lives on the Denali Highway. You probably know that, and that highway's snow all winter. And if they didn't come it through and plow the snow in April, it'd probably still be parts of it with snow, maybe. And so I went out there a week or two before they plowed to help with Squid Acres, and I see Jesse out there running his 9-dog team of 1 or 2 year olds, and he's like, yeah, training for next year. It's been like 3 weeks since he got back from Nome. And but yeah, I mean, those guys were home while you were gone, and they're they need to get some meaningful harness experience in during that time, especially when you can kind of play around a little bit more when you're not having the pressure of drop bags and this and everything coming up. So that, yeah, I definitely agree. Like I from outsider's perspective looking in, I'm like, man, Jesse trains really hard, and I know there's other mushers that think that too. But you do have your A team, your B team, your young dogs, your older dogs, your puppies, and so I know that it's
Yeah.
it's spread out and well thought out.
So yeah, the interesting thing when you passed me, I was wondering if you would have noticed this, but like I don't think you did, like I had like a full on like sprint team that I was building to be a 16-mile-an-hour team in like sprint racing, which is not that fast. But I knew that they would dominate in every other field of like 50 to 100 to 200-mile races because they could run 14 miles an hour all day long. So I was ripping on that run, dude. I had the
I saw you
fastest team
running
hooked
fast,
up
but
with, yeah, they were going 14, 15, 16, throughout that run. I
I
sold
thought
all of them.
I saw you
I
doing
give
that.
up on
And
that dream.
yeah, I thought you were like, I thought, he stopped. I pulled up next to you on the snow machine, and I was like trying to say something. You couldn't hear me. I couldn't hear you. And then I got you to stop, and you were like, yeah, I could tell you were probably like, I'm in the middle of something here, Sean, but I'll stop and say, hey. And no, he wasn't. I'm just giving you,
They're maybe not the best team at stopping,
yeah.
being the sprint
Well,
dogs. They were, yeah, but
yeah,
I'm always down to stop and talk, man. It doesn't matter. When I'm training, if I pass another muster, like we always stop and say hi.
nice.
Paige and Cody, we always high five each other going by. And it's kind of like
Right.
this, that's the standard thing when you head on pass. It's awesome if you get a high five.
Gotta get the high five in, dude.
Got to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they
That's
looked like a
style
rowdy
points right
team.
there. That's muching down the trail in style, dude.
Heck yeah. Yeah, that's yeah, that was cool seeing you out there and just for the last few days of snow on the highway and cool to see you're getting
For
to
you,
continue.
not for me, dude. I was I was another 2 weeks out there going crazy, bro. I was running
Oh,
3 teams a day when you seen me. I was back from like a 30-mile adventure run in the morning out on the snow crust in the mountains. And then I was like hooking up the sprint team to go. I was doing a 10-mile run. We made 14.6 miles an hour for that 10-mile run that I saw you on.
wow. That's yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's an interesting like I you have like these sectors of dogs that you can kind of do we'll do sprint with this team this year, and then you can kind of maybe transition them off that as they get a little older, or maybe not, maybe those are like the houndier dogs that you want to keep being kind of on the shorter races.
The whole theory is that I was going to try to break off more than I could handle for myself. I wanted to like go back to Cusco. I wanted to go win 200-mile races. I wanted to be able to like cross these dogs that I've specifically bought from the Streepers and other village sprint dogs that I've had from the past that I've gotten, and keep that fast breed around, because I like breeding the fast dog to the slow dog and coming with the in-between dog. And so all these dogs were like half crosses of streeper dogs that were high end dogs and high end genetics that I brought into the kennel, crossed to polar and dogs like Arctic and Odin and, my other lines and Thor and Flash. And so I've made my own genetic lines and diversity, but I kind of bailed out for sure on the whole deal of wanting to pursue the other races. I sold most all of those dogs. I have a few more that are going to sell. They're amazing dogs, but I kept what I liked for selection for the breeding program, because no doubt there's numerous dogs in my main team that are extremely fast, and they are streeper crosses, and they're some of my best dogs. I brought Raymond Alexi's dogs back into the kennel this year that I raised. He's going to school and he's getting married and he's doing some other things for a little while. And, the dogs came back to me and we made a deal. And I got some extremely fast dogs from that deal that were out of some really good breedings I did. And they all are in my main Iditarod team now. Not all of them, but 8 of the big males, went back into my team. And they are some fast dogs, but they are tougher than nails. I've never seen dogs as tough. So it really, benefited me to think out of the box over the years. But it's just not practical to have 80 dogs. That's what I had before Iditarod. I'm down to 49 dogs. I've sold a lot of dogs. I've been helping to build teams that are going to go do what Raymond did. They're going to go hopefully win and be fast. And, and I still got the genetics here. And yeah, I'm really excited about where the careers went genetically with the dogs finally. There's like such a predictability now and what I'm going for. I'm going for the Copper Basin, the Kobuk 440, and the Iditarod. The Quest would really fit my style of dog and mushing, but I think that's biting off a little more than I'm ready for. So, I've walked away from that dream of those faster races because I like the tough races. I like the tough dogs for living out here. You got to have tough dogs out here. The wind, the trail conditions. So yeah, it's pretty amazing what those sprint dogs can do. They're true top of the line athletes to be able to perform at 20 miles an hour in a 3-day race. There's not really, a lot bad you could say about their capabilities athletically. It's, can we get a dog that can do well in the cold from that? Like Hercules. Hercules is a bulletproof dog. My golden harness winner. And I mean, he's out of a top of the line, streeper dog that goes back to Eggle Ellis's breedings. And that dog has never gotten any frostbite, and he holds his weight well, but he's got that sprint dog in him. And it's, I guess as long as you got that dog in you.
Yeah, I got to see the last couple years, get to check out the Fur Rendezvous and I came, I guess all 3 of us from the Dirty South. And
yeah. Let's go.
When I came up here and I dived first, let's go. Yeah, I dived head first into the long distance scene, and I always thought, oh, like the distance scene, like that's the real sled dog is kind of what I had in my head after 2 years of doing it or whatever. And then I went and saw the sprint dogs, and you're like, okay, like completely different athlete, obviously. We knew that. Yeah, you got same with human cross country and human sprint, the same with the dogs. But like I talked to a couple sprint mushers and they had the same opinion but the opposite, of like, no, yeah, the distance mushers, I mean, they're just on a camping trip, like, and then the sprint mushers, they would tell me like, no, this is like real mushing here. And I was like, I can't remember what the case was, but just maybe like the finer line and like the competitiveness and like how one little thing is there's finer margins maybe. But I was like, wow, that's like a pretty intriguing point. Like they are kind of like, it's like if Jessie stops because actually I forgot to pee after my camp. I got to pee. I'm going to stop for a minute. Like that's probably not going to like
Yeah.
eliminate your hopes of winning, whereas if you do that in a sprint race, you're done, you know. So I don't know. Well, like
Yeah.
you've seen the
Yeah.
sprint scene.
Yeah.
You've gotten streeper dogs. Like what's like something that you like take note of in the sprint scene?
Well, I think that, I know what you're talking about with the sprint mushers thinking the distance mushers are on the camping trip. And, the distance mushers think, the sprint mushers are in spandex and running hounds. I am such a person that's like thirsty for dog knowledge that, whether it's hunting dogs, herding dogs, Jack Russell Terriers, like horses, any kind of athletic animal fascinates me. So, I didn't have that barrier between me and I originally was around more sprint mushing than I was distance mushing. I've raced 2 open North American sprint races. I've raced in Alacac at Tanana, Minto numerous years. And I was, involved a lot in the villages and the sprint dogs that they have. And they have some really tough breeds of dogs, man. And, at the end of the day, it comes down to quality of dogs for me. That's my way I chose to approach building my kennel. Like even my long distance dogs that are super hardy. I mean, I just won the toughest race in history, on a tough trail. Like those dogs can get up and roll 16 miles an hour anytime you let them, not of course 800 miles into the Iditarod, who would do that in the first place, but they never, because of the way I've bred them and trained them, they never forget that they can go fast. They're always like happy to go fast. They love speed. So I think that's where it really helped me is in, the vision of the type of dog I wanted to work with, I want to have the highest capability of athletic, I want to know they could run 20 miles an hour smoothly. That's the dog I want to breed. And that's not always necessarily true. Sometimes you breed the like big tough dog that's more of a slogger to a lighter bone female to like get that in between, that dog has a very good purpose in its breeding program too, but as does the dog like Vito that's the dad of Hercules and some other superstars here. He had his purpose. And I always tried to like breed that lighter bone fast dog to a heavy bone female, like that has all that structure that you
Yeah.
need for distance and the fur. You find I found a female that you could breed any sprint dog to, and they come out husky, which is pretty cool.
Clipper?
It's a Clipper daughter named Rouge. Yeah, Clipper really brought my career to this level. Like there's certain dogs, genetic and foundation wise, that brought my career to where it is. Clipper is one, and then Flash that I got from my friend Jody Potts like 15 years ago or something.
Yeah.
But they are both ideal huskies. They are as hardy as they come. But, Flash was no slow dog. He ran lead in North American. And so, that's where the speed kind of stayed in the line. I never really felt like Clipper really was a fast dog, very fast dog anyways. She wasn't that high athletic, but man, she brought the toughness in. Toughness like no other. The dogs always eat, always drink if you got that line mixed in there. It's pretty incredible line, and I'm very fortunate that I, got my hands on that dog.
Yeah, I feel like you've been, and I think that this goes with like a long list of mushers too, but part of what's adding to your success and how you've seen just your results have been building, your training's been building, you're building your resources at your kennel, and you're just like stacking, and so it wasn't this you were obviously a favorite going into it this year, but you've been spending all these years working towards this thing, and each year you start a little bit of ahead of where you started the previous year. And of course that goes with a lot of other dog teams too, but
Yeah.
it's cool to see. And then now you're able to even crank that up another notch because you don't have like a second, you have other things you're doing outside of dogs. You're doing some traveling, your sponsorships, you've got other activities, but for the most part, you're able to just fully focus on like your property and your dogs, so like, And then on top of that, you've been stacking those years and years of over the last decade or so of or more, getting to build on what you've on the previous years. So yeah, pretty cool. Like now you're starting as an Iditarod champion going into the next year, and you've got, you know, you just got to keep going, and you're gonna be the person to beat, you know, for sure. So it's an amazing group of dogs you've been able to make you know, part of Team Can't Stop.
And one thing I want to add to
Yeah,
that
I'm
is just your connection with the dogs. Even to me, like the layman of like you know, I've not seen the races up close and personal, but like the videos, the interviews that they had this year with you when you were like camping out, but they were still interviewing you, just like the way, you know, you're having the interview, but like the way you're caring for the dogs, the way you can see them like reacting to you, like it for me, even as a guy who doesn't really see it as well as someone else, I was just like, damn, those dogs are like so in sync with you. That to me was like so apparent. So just like kind of summarizing what Sean said, like the what you've built, the system is clearly working, and it says a lot to, you know, like what you've been able to develop here for the last, is it a decade now that you've been like fully committed to this, or is it more than that? Like,
a decade is when I hit the scene in what I would say a big way. I won the Quest 300, you know, 10 years ago. Then I
okay,
won the 440 the next year, you know, like, but I had been racing probably for about 6 years, you know, doing other stuff and the sprint racing and all that other things. But I mean, you know, I had done it long enough that I really believed in myself and I believed that I wanted to make it happen, you know, and then some good things happened in my life while I was making it happen. Cause, you know, I used to be a dude with a fish wheel, a boat, you know, that, you know, my amazing friends, my Athabascan friends, you know, shared with me, taught me how to fish, you know, and I learned how to build boats and I was living on the river and I was working every job I could, man, to make this dream happen. And then I ended up on the TV show and that was it for me, you know, because I was like, I got this job that's going to come to me, and I'd already won, you know. Then I won the Quest 300 right when I got on that, so I'd been putting the work in. I had bred the dogs that I'm breeding nowadays go back to 15 years ago, you know, whenever I had nothing but a dream and a hope and a glitter in my eye that I would hopefully someday run the Iditarod.
that, oh man, I love it.
And you know, that's it, you know, like, and there's I love seeing those guys out there right now that are like that remind me of me, you know, like I think like Connor McMahon, Lauro, you know, my buddies, dude, because I see them like they fought for that dream, they figuring it out, you know, they're figuring out a way to make that dream happen, and I just don't want to ever forget those years, because those are the years that, like, I used to race when there was, you know, no sign that I would ever maybe even make it to the starting line of the Iditarod. It was just my passion. And yeah, so 10 years ago, I won the Quest 300. And I mean, I've been believing in myself since, investing in myself. I got the TV show. I was able to get some extra money, add to the genetics. You know, I kept fishing. That's what they're wanting to film me do, anyways, you know, and it really opened up the opportunity to buy this property and carve my life out here on a raw piece of land. And that was part of the vision and dream. You know, it's not just about the racing. I wanted to be able to live the lifestyle like Sean was talking about. You know, a big thing that I got going for me is that I've figured out how to make this my soul thing. You know, like, this is my sole focus, my well-being, my health, my well-being, my property, and my dog team and my dreams. And you know, once the show ended a few years ago for me, like, I had to, like, I had built the cabins up, you know, I'd built the infrastructure, I got the sleds, I've got the, you know, dog breed going really well, and I figured out a way to just keep racing. And I'm always hustling, you know, like, there's other ways of making money. And but, you know, selling dogs, you know, I sell a lot of dogs every year, and I breed a lot of dogs, and I employ a lot of handlers that, you know, are a big part of my success, you know, in the winter, and raising and training all these dogs with me. And we focus on every dog to where we're like, you know, doing this great work with these dogs that they go into these other people's teams and they're successful. And that's a big part of it for me is I don't want to be, I want people running the dogs from my breed, you know, like I'm not stingy with that, you know, like I want to like help people out with that, even that maybe can't afford to like buy a high dollar dog, you know, like I've got enough dogs and I'm doing good enough that I can be like, hey, here you go, man, breed this dog for free, you know,
Yeah.
or or give them my friends a good deal on that. And a lot of people that buy dogs from me are my friends, you know, and so it's a pretty cool thing that I've been able to accomplish to where I can be out here and just immersed in it. You know, I don't really have a life outside of it, honestly. It's
Dude,
pretty cool.
dude, I was just remembering because you're talking about selling dogs to your friends, and just a quick reminder to whoever listening that you know yes, you sell and you can make money, but it's also like you're what you want out of that deal. Obviously you want to get a little check, but it's like what, maybe 1 to 3 grand for your like one of your better dogs. Maybe you could make an argument for a little bit more for a winning Iditarod dog, but um
Yeah.
you're not getting like rich off one dog, and they're you want nothing more than to see that dog succeed on someone else's team. It's like that's the dream.
Right.
You want that for the dog and for the person getting the dog. But I was just remembering when I worked for Jeff and we gave you Jeff sold you Twister, and I think you paid for her
Tempest.
Tempest, and you paid for her with like a trailer full of pink salmon. It was like 700 salmon or something. And so we just wake up one day and we just see a trailer of fish, and we're like, what is it? Was like an open trailer, and it's just like swimming with like they
Yeah.
were fresh fish. And he's like, yeah, why don't you go ahead and hang these things up? I was like, what? Half what? And so it's like you're bartering too. I'm sure,
Yeah.
hey, you can have my stud for your litter, and maybe you can
Yeah.
help me out with getting a dog yard for my dogs to be in when I go to Kobuk or whatever. So there's lots of bartering, I'm imagining, in there
Yeah,
too. But
man. It's huge. The trade and barter system in Alaska is just amazing. It's almost like it's a part of the culture of being Alaskan, I feel like, and yeah, like probably the best deal I ever got, getting Tempest. She was a rock star for me, and now she's a rock star for the family that she went to. And yeah, those are the things that matter to me. It's like I've created a way to where I could have a lot of dogs ethically, by, like you said, I want to see these dogs succeed. Like Alaska, everything I do is on reputation. Like I hardly even advertise about dogs and selling them. And it ain't just because I won the Iditarod. I've been having really good success at selling dogs ever since I won my first Kobuk 440. I know that you have to, some people are good at marketing themselves at getting big sponsors or sponsors and online and stuff, but like that's my niche is like marketing my dogs and improving my genetics to where I have and my training techniques and my knowledge of all these people out there that maybe want to buy a dog and knowing what they want and need and making sure they get that. And it just like Raymond, my relationship with Raymond and his dad Harry is been incredible, and they were able to be like highly successful, so amazingly successful with my genetics of dogs out in the Bethel region, which we all know how competitive it is and how fast of a tough, durable dog you need out there. And that's just awesome. That's the best advertising right there, and just super honored that they wanted to see those dogs go back to me. And, and it's just huge. And they've been such kind people to deal with over the years. Super impressed by what Raymond's accomplished. He spent a few weeks with me training out here this winter, and it just showed the dedication. And I got to observe him. I like to always observe people with dogs. There's so much you can learn, and he just has such an incredible knack with the dogs that they just like adore him and trust him so much. A lot like the relationship like I built with the dogs, through what I do is like the way he talks to the dog is so calm and the dog just knows that they can trust him and they're like his friends, you know. So that was pretty cool to see this winter. And, you know, man, he trains fast too. I think if that Raymond had ever come out and ran the Ferrandi, I think he would have been, you know, flying.
Yeah, I think of Raymond Alexi. I would love to get him on here one day, but when Pete won the Cusco, it was either this year or it was either last year. Well, he won both years, but I mean, like in the interview, Pete was like, I think Raymond was in the race, the 300 maybe for the first time, and Pete was like, hey, I just wanted, I told Raymond at the end of the race, like, thanks for letting me win one this year, you know, because Raymond Alexi had won every single Bethel sled dog event in that whole calendar year. And then, you know, 8, 9 or 10-time champ, Pete Kaiser was like, thank God Raymond let me win one, because Pete had been in all those events too, just getting stoked by Raymond.
Right. I really like to think that Raymond's going to come back and get into it again. And, you know, you know, being so awesome of people to work with, I'm like here to support and like, you know, I'll breed up a litter for him something, because I want to see him race the Cusco in the future. And, you know, I think he'd be really good with that race with some more practice. And, you know, I think he'll come back someday. But it's good, you know, when you're a young man to like, you know, take off some time and like catch up from it, you know, when you've been doing this. I think Raymond was racing at 16, 17, like serious, you know. It's good to slow it down a little, and he knows he has all the knowledge and the skill to come back into it and even build it bigger and better.
So I wanted to just follow up with you. You talked a little bit about your time with Life Below Zero. I was curious, like, how did that opportunity even come about? Like, you know, like, is that something that you were seeking out, or that just kind of fell in your lap, or what?
Yeah, there's an interesting story. You know, it's I worked for this guy. I knew him ever since I came up to Alaska. This like legendary musher in my mind, like Sep Herman. He had run numerous Iditarods. I'd always go over to his place for sauna, and he'd cook up caribou roast or bear roast, and we'd like have like bear gallbladder bile like mixed in with some vodka, and like it was like a ceremony, dude, going over there. And the guy would like pour knowledge. He was a trapline musher up in the Brooks Range, catching wolves and whatnot. Like he was an expert at catching wolves by dog team. And he used to sell leaders to like great mushers like Susan and Rick. He was an incredible leader trainer, and he had run the race a few times. Another crazy story, his whole dog team that he was going to race with one year got killed by a grizzly bear in the middle of winter up in the Brooks Range. And, you know, so this guy, Eric, would come over there, and like we were both like learning from Sep and stuff. And so we became friends, and I did some work for him over the years, like remodeling some stuff. And he became a pretty big businessman. And he has a hunting guide, and he was on Life Below Zero. And they were looking to bring some new blood into the show. And he threw my name in the hat and called me and told me I should go for the opportunity. And I was like, no way. Not me, dude. Not for me. I didn't want anything to do with it, to be honest. And he was trying to convince me of what an incredible opportunity it would be. And I had the fish wheel, I had the boat that I had built. You know, ever since I came to Alaska, I was all about the woodsman life. You know, that's what I wanted to be as a woodsman. I got dogs because I trapped and used them as transportation, hauling wood, hauling water. That's where my whole background in dogs is. And that's what I came to Alaska for. You know, it kind of came into racing, you know, is like, it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to be really good at this and serious at this. It's like, oh, go try that. You know, I was just living the life and having fun. I had bigger, furrier dogs. And so, yeah, you know, I had this reputation of being out in the woods and pursuing a subsistence lifestyle. And so he sent him my way. And he eventually talked me into meeting up with these people and shooting a little sizzler is what they call it, you know. They condense it down to 3 minutes. They bring it to the network. They had like 8, 9 people they went and did this with, but I was one of the guys with my name in the hat, and I didn't know if I really wanted to be doing this for sure. And I was like not too into it, to be honest, but I was trying to like see some kind of opportunity to make my dreams come true. And they picked me. They said that I had edge because, you know, I was like, I'm going to be a champion someday. it wasn't just about subsistence lifestyle. It was my dogs were a way of life for me, the fishing, the whole lifestyle I wanted to live. But I was like, I'm going to be a champion one day. I believed it even back then when honestly, things weren't that easy for me. I always almost quit. It was so hard trying to figure out how to make my dreams happen. I ran into every challenge you can almost. And I stayed in it with pure heart and love that's what I was going to do anyways, was be out in the woods with dogs. So, I may as well be good at racing. And that gave me an incredible opportunity to, share my life, my spirit, my attitude, and my direction with the world. And it provided me with a great income. And, I can't believe I was trying to turn away from that. But it was the most uncomfortable thing in the world to me at first because I believed in living that lifestyle as a purist. I was like an idealist in my mind. I had a lot of idealism back then, and I don't think I have that now. I'm like, you got to sacrifice things if you want to be a champion, and it was an incredible opportunity for me. I didn't know how big it was going to go, but it went really big, and I was on the show for 7 years.
That's awesome. What out of curiosity, like how much time are they spending with you from like year to year as they're shooting? Is it just like they're with you for 6 weeks and then they make their episodes or whatever? Or like are they with you for like a lot longer or what?
Yeah, well, early on, like I was really gung ho, man. I wanted to, make that money. I wanted to build the kennel. I saw this as a way to make my dream come true. So as much as I was into running the Iditarod and the races, I understood this is my job and I have to prioritize this, and like I had to do a good job at this. So I shot like 20 episodes a year sometimes early on. And 8 or 9 of them would be in the summer, and then I'd be doing 11 or 12 episodes in the winter. So I would say they would come in different stages. So I would tailor my training around that. I would train really hard for periods, and then I would build recovery periods while I was focusing on filming, and then I'd go out and train at night and do 30s, and I wouldn't sleep much. It was pretty good training for that. And we'd film for 2-3 weeks at a time, 3-4 times a winter. So I had it figured out because some of my fellow mushers were like, oh yeah, Jesse's got this sweet deal, it's a sponsor. Like it's not a sponsor, it's a job. And I sacrifice my time away from running the dogs to do this. You guys wait till I don't have a job, and then I'm gonna really whoop some butt. So I spent 57 days a winter filming for a few winters, to where it was a hard thing to balance, but without the money and without the income, you just can't build what I built and do what I did. And once it was all over, like my dog breed became so much better. I was able to get the proper equipment and stop mushing in blue jeans. And I used to mush in these cotton gloves when I lived in Nenana, and they would have holes all in them, but I would still use them, and I'd just curl my fingers up in them. Like I used to mush in blue jeans, like now I'm like mushing in puffy pants, and like, I got a pretty awesome parka and whatnot. And so, yeah, I was really, fortunate to find something that blended with the lifestyle so well. Because when I moved out here, my job came out here to film me build my life out here. I didn't have to go to work anymore.
Yep.
Work came out here, so I could just. I think moving out here was the best thing I ever did. I honestly look back. I was thinking about this the other day. I think if I had stayed in Nenana, I don't know if I would have become my potential. Because out here, you have to be with yourself and be with the dogs, and you have to be very self-reliant. You don't go out for a run without all your ducks in a row out here. You're always thinking like you need to think on the Iditarod Trail, because you could go, and do a 200-mile training trip out here, as Sean knows, could be quite testing in some of these open, windy places and cold places. Like where I live is really cold. I didn't know that when I picked this place out. I thought it would be warmer being up high, but mushers that train out here can attest when you go through Brush Canna, sometimes it's really cold.
Yeah, that is definitely a cold pocket in there. And yeah, it's the Denali Highway is just such a wonderful place to explore year round. And for you to be there yeah, there's one of like seven properties on 135 miles of highway, and hopefully, I know that there's some potential that could change. So hopefully it stays like that for you, and you can have that nice remote public lands for many decades to come. And I know we've been talking for now approaching an hour. We haven't really even talked about that Iditarod much. I mean, I almost kind of, don't even want to, because it's just been such a fun just shooting the shit with. That's why I'm always like, dude, we don't need to like write an itinerary for these conversations. It's fun to just kind of take it where it goes. And we talked about sprint mushers wearing spandex and talking about that, the whole spectrum of stuff. So it's been fun. But yeah, we can't,
dude.
possibly.
I wear spandex.
Dude, spandex are cozy, dude. They're airtight.
Did you know that?
I love spandex, dude.
Heck yeah, dude. 2 years ago, I started running in tights, and I'm telling you what, dude, I missed out for like 15 years of my running, story in life. Like I love the tights for running. The compression tights are the best.
No, I didn't mean that but we were talking about how,
I know.
yeah. And
I was just throwing something funny in there,
Yeah.
It's like you said, it's fun that we didn't have to dive into the Iditarod. Everybody knows I won the Iditarod. They're going to watch the story on the incredible film that's going to come out here soon at the Beartooth Bar and Grill there, and I think the insiders did. It looks, I mean, I see what those guys do out there and the extent they go through to tell these stories, and it's incredible. And I mean, people are going to hear the story of the Iditarod there.
yeah.
I mean, I'm open to talking to it, but I think it's fun, like you said, talking about some other dynamics that lead to that success.
For sure. I totally agree. I think that comes out July 14th. I went over to the Pacific Northwest for a short trip and got to have lunch with Kyle Proth. I believe, I don't know how to say his last name, but Proth or Prothy. And he's the guy that's he's having a huge part of the final edit of it, and said he's been just grinding away. He working big days. That was a couple of weeks ago. So I'm really excited to see the product and yeah. So, we were talking about this before we started recording. We had kind of some, pretty big news in mushing this week, which was we have a musher from Norway, and you're about to be going over the Norway. So I'm assuming there'll be some kind of connection over there with Thomas Werner and that corner. There's a lot of names that are a little bit difficult to pronounce, but there's a gentleman who I can't pronounce his name. Brennan's on it, but he's got a lot of money, and he's giving some of it to the Iditarod to be able to do this expedition class and participate in the race. He has been mushing for 4 years. I saw his team out on the trail in White Mountain. The day I was leaving, I saw Thomas Berner and Yor Olsson land in White Mountain. I was like, it was hilarious. I had no clue, of course, if this is going on. And I'm just like walking around. I see this I think it was a Cessna little 2-seater land, and these two like tall dudes get out. I'm like, whatever. And then I just hear like, Sean. And I was like, and like right behind me is like and then I'd never met Thomas, and he's like, I'm like looking up at him. I don't look up to many people, literally. So that was kind of a trip. And they were telling me a little bit about it, but I didn't really understand. There was 2 snow machiners coming in to White Mountain that were supporting the sled dog expedition on the trail. And so they had a plane, and they had the snow machines and the dog teams, and they were able to like bring in new dogs if dogs got sore and take out the sore dogs and send them home, just like the Iditarod does. So they already did this expedition in a way separate from the race this year, but they didn't do the Grayling loop. But so
Yeah.
clearly the guy's got, he's got,
I bet they were happy they didn't.
yeah, for sure. And you know, got to qualify for that Iditarod, but maybe he has it. I think he's also maybe, I don't. This is when I'm starting to get to the extent of my knowledge, but run the Norwegian race. But I mean, he's seen the Iditarod Trail this year, and so it's not like he's totally green. And then yeah, being able to financially help a race that's always kind of struggling financially to make this really expensive event happen for a bunch of mushers who are living a really expensive hobby that doesn't really give you much of a return on your investment. And so it's been interesting to kind of start to see this dialogue happening on Facebook and whatever online platforms. It seems for some reason like the mushing debates happen on Facebook, whatever. And so I kind of read a little bit, and there's some like compelling arguments against and for this expedition class, but I know that there's just been a long yearning for an expedition type class or a less competitive Iditarod class, because now that you have less mushers competing, there's less kind of, you saw these mushers that got withdrawn for lack of competitiveness this year. And since you have fewer mushers, there's less of a lag to let those back of the packers run a maybe more kind of slower pace race, like you might have been able to run a 14-15 day race just like 10 years ago. And this year that you're, if you even run a 12-day race or 13-day race, you're kind of on the cusp. So you're the one of the main representatives of mushing now as an Iditarod champion. You already really were before that, but I'm just kind of curious. I'm sure, have you been paying attention to this? What are your thoughts?
Nice.
Yeah, I don't miss much, that goes on in the mushing world. Like you said, all you got to do is look on Facebook and, you can see a lot of people's opinions, I don't really like to speak, heavily, like on things that I just don't know all the details of. I prefer to educate myself, and it just seems like the Iditarod's trying something new, and I have to applaud them for, thinking out of the box, and I think that, a lot of people really like the idea of an expedition class, but is it going to be an expedition class that's inclusive to, the people that want to run a slower pace on the trail? And I think that, we have to try to be open-minded and, hope for the best. And, this could open a lot of doors, it looks like, I I definitely see what, all sides of the arguments, not arguments, or I see that, we pride this belt buckle, we pride that finish. And, I just don't, I think that they're going to have their own set of rules for it, and they're going to work all the kinks out. They're going to kind of see what the public kind of, directs, and, they're going to make something new. And I think we just have to be open minded and trust that the Iditarod has the best interest, in making this a premier event again that it used to be, 15, 20 years ago. And it still is a premier event. I'm not saying anything bad, but it's an expensive sport. And us mushers, we want to do it every year. And we love this race. And, we are so grateful and have so much gratitude to all the volunteers and the villages and the people behind the scenes that work endless hours to make this happen. And so yeah, I think we just have to hope that this is going to bring a great future to and bring an expedition class that hopefully you don't have to be a millionaire to compete in, like and this could be a momentum shift, maybe, is what I want to hope, like that they sent out the purse breakdown of with what it's going to be with the additional money to the purse. And I'm telling you what, man, it's substantial. And I'm telling you what, I just seen it like 6 hours ago, and I'm on cloud nine about that. And so that has a huge effect,
Why wasn't he in it
like
this
I think
year
that
for you
honestly,
this
like
year?
my opinion, no, I'm gonna win it this year too, bro. Like I'm coming for it bigger and harder and better than like I ever have. I believe like I'm a big mixed martial arts fan, and when you become the champion, like you get 30% better. Like I think, athletics is we are so like other athletics, except we don't have much reward, at the end. We're not like Kobe Bryant's or Michael Jordan's. We're not like going home to comfort after we train, like we're living this like modest, meager lifestyle to like be able to do this. So I think that money in the purse is going to be a good thing. And I've been hoping for that so much that the purse would come back, and that the truck would come back, and the prestige would come back to being an Iditarod champion. Because, you know, Iditarod champions in the past were rock stars, and it brought, a ton of opportunities. I'm not sitting here waiting for these opportunities or thinking they should come to me. These people went out and marketed themselves business wise and made these opportunities. But that purse alone, say I was to win and make 80,000, like I'm almost covering my cost of the kennel. If I like sell some good dogs and then I go win the Copper Basin and the 440, then like I'm coming out ahead on this, and then I can continue to live this lifestyle. So there's a huge motivation for me on that, purse money. I want that first place. I'm not letting nobody take it from me, man. I'm going to say that right here, right now, it to me to like be able to repeat as an Iditarod champion after my first championship is like the new thing to me. Like I forgot about winning. Like I'm more driven and more hungry than I ever have. So, that's a big motivator to me. And I know that it's going to be that to my competition, and it's going to spark some momentum. I think that, you know, people like to see prestige. People like to see winners. They want to see you adorned as that winner. They want to see you be able to continue to race off that winnings, at least. And I think it could have a really good momentum shift, and I hope that's what they use it as, is a momentum shift. They don't set that people aren't like, okay, cool, we're all set. We got a $650,000 purse. Let's make it $1 million purse like we were supposed to for the 50th anniversary. Let's get a truck back for the winner and watch the battle ensue. I mean, watch Dallas will be there. I think Dallas is going to be there. That's what I want to ask you guys. So you guys are interviewing me and we're talking about mushing, like, is Dallas Seavey coming back? Is he going to feel the motivation and inspiration to come back? I'm sure it's not about money to him, but I'm hoping that he looks at how much better me, Paige, and Matt became this year. And that we're here to give him a challenge, man. Like we want to race the best. And we're all, a lot of us mushers are in like an upward cycle of improvement and putting this thing together. And I just feel like next year's Iditarod race is going to be awesome. I think it's going to be the race of all ages is what I'm hoping for. And I'm hoping that I'm going to win it.
Man, I feel like that. I'm like hyped up now, dude. I'm fired up. I mean, obviously you're hyped to defend your title and forget the increase in purse. And then you add that to it. And it's not just to win. I mean, for the people that are knocking at the door of the top 10, and they're looking at an extra 15K to their prize money next year, it does have a huge snowball effect having that prize money. And I feel like it's easy to look at it and just be like, oh, it's like more money. Like that's not solving anything. It actually does help with mushers being motivated to, hey, I'm going to spend my extra resources of time and money to try to pull this thing off and go for it. And that it does kind of help build the race back up. And it is what started this race, was that quest by Joe Reddington to get that prize money that he promised the mushers before he actually had even gotten it. So yeah, that's a big part of it. Mm-hmm. And now we look at the expedition class aspect and you're like, okay, well, we have it's not really an open class this year, seemingly. I think maybe we don't really know. There's just like this one Facebook announcement and Iditarod website announcement to my knowledge. So there's just a lot of questions. I think it's hard to be critical. It's just like, all right, here's my question. No. Like, is it open to other people? If it is, what is the cost? And, is it not open to other people, but it's the beginning of maybe in the net 2027, it is. And this is kind of like a beta for it, so, I feel like.
Or is this guy thinking, Sorry.
Go ahead. No.
Or is this guy thinking, are they going to come in and they're going to try to race me? Are they going to
Yeah.
fly in dogs and like rest the 6-on-6 off and like have this strategy that, well, we all want to know the rules, but we can't get all like hyped up, let's do the research and like, I think, we need to try to keep open minds if we want to see the sport succeed. And I do so badly, not just for me, I want everybody to be included. I think that the Iditarod needs to be an all-inclusive experience. I feel empathy for the people who didn't reach their dreams that were at the back of the pack. And I feel like there's better ways to deal with those things. But, ranting and raving about it isn't going to do nothing. Like, we just got to be willing to, be open-minded. And like, I just hope that this is going to lead to, an all-inclusive event and a different class. I definitely want Rick to be in a different class. He's not racing me. I can tell you that much. Like, he's, even if they want to use an airplane and fly in all the dogs, I'm going to try to figure out a way to beat anything that comes at me in the Iditarod. So, we're just all got a lot of questions. We want to know the ins and outs. And, I'm sure that that's coming, like we got the information today about how the money's being distributed. I love that they're distributing money to the villages and the communities that we're going through. I think that's super important. I think that they should be at the top of the list of, the most important opinions, because that's their country. That's their homes that they welcome us into. The villages are a huge part of the race. They used to be an even bigger part of the race when people weren't corralled. And for me, it's a humongous part of the race. Like the inspiration and motivation that I get traveling through the heart of Alaska and building relationships with people out there. So yeah, I really want to see the race thrive for Emily Robinson, Stanley, Isaac Reddington. There's so many kids, so many families, the Wappets, there's like the Randalls, like it's our job as mushers to make sure this race is still there. And, I want to do what I can as a champion for the race and, build the brand of Iditarod, build, the race, build the competitive race and the fan base. And I want to go win again so I can continue to do that, and continue to have that platform. But, it is hard because I'm out here. I'm focused on being a champion in this race. I'm not a huge, large scale operation. It's just me out here right now. I've been out here for 2 months by myself with these dogs, and, I want to do what I can. I'm going to some speaking events, coming up here soon. And, I would like to hopefully view this as a practice run and get on some more podcasts and spread the word of how awesome Iditarod is and how much we love our dogs and how good a care we take of our dogs. And, the young people that are coming up into this race and this Alaskan tradition, running dogs, period. I want to see running dogs be big again. I want to see families have dogs, like that's how Mushing survives is we have a huge family, sprint mushers in spandex, stage racers. Like we got to all come together as dog sport enthusiasts and want, to see all these races be big, not just the Iditarod, the Copper Basin, the Quest, wouldn't that be amazing if they have 1,000-mile event someday, and I mean, I think there's a lot of positive things we can do as mushers by just feeding positive, being positive, putting positivity out there, inspiring people, like we're really fortunate to be able to live this incredible lifestyle with these amazing dogs that like we don't deserve them, man. They're so amazing. Like I have a hard time. Like I think I'm a good person, but it's hard for me to feel that I deserve the love that they give me. It's just so it's you can just trust it fully. They love you for all the right reasons. I'm
So
tearing up, man. Like that's, what the sport's all about is our relationship with those dogs and our love for them. And just like, it's like I said at the finish in the Iditarod, it's not about this moment here, winning this trophy finally. It is about all the moments there and all the moments along the way. And, the year I got third instead of second, I was like happy. I didn't want to, I wasn't ready to win. It wasn't my time. I tried to trust that if I kept working hard, I was increasing my chances that it may happen someday. But, it was my time last year. You know, it's an incredible feeling. It's chasing your passion and to the end and being successful. And I want other young people to be able to have that opportunity to live this life with these dogs and, these wealth of experiences, emotional experiences that really form you.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, well, first of all, it's apparent again, yet just in this conversation, your love for the dogs, um, and just kind of like couple different things that I wanted to hit. So, summarizing a little bit of what you said, like the announcement they made, um, it's kind of vague. So like it's understandable that there are a lot of different opinions and there's a lot of information that's still to be determined. And I'm sure once that comes out, maybe that will hopefully help put some concerns to rest. So we can kind of leave that there.
Mm-hmm.
And then what was the other thing I was gonna hit
The
on?
one thing I wanted to
Oh,
say, touch on was that, we talked about prize money for a little bit, but you touched on that some of this money that is coming from our expedition class musher, in which we'll learn how to pronounce the name here at some point, I'm sure. And but
I mean, for me, it's a guess because I don't know. Kajel,
yeah,
gel,
I mean,
like
they gotta give us something there. But anyways, is that the money's a lot of the money, a good chunk of it is going to the villages, and that's such an important part. How and Iditarod, Mark Nordman is leading, I think, in my understanding, the charge with the village relations. He's just got this, several decade long relationships with these villages, and it's super important to not like take that for granted from the fans perspective, from the race organization's perspective. They know that better than anybody else. The mushers do too, and that's why you see all the mushers coming through with like making sure that they're you know grateful that folks are opening up their home and community to the event and to the dogs and people, and to keep that, to think like, hey, yeah, isn't it good enough that we have our dogs and coming through your village? Like, isn't that good enough? Like, no, it's really probably not. Like, they're making us food and they're letting us sleep on their gym floors in their school. Like, they totally deserve a paycheck for that,
Yeah,
and so it's cool to hear that I know they already some
absolutely,
villages,
man.
not all of them are, so at least some of them are getting some kind of compensation, and to the second we get that bigger paycheck, and then they get more of that compensation. So it's just good to hear that, and it's good to I think it's important for people to realize, like, yes, it's cool for the villages for the race comes through, but like that's like it being cool isn't like enough, right? So you want to get that compensation for them is awesome. And then of course, like you saying, it's not just about Iditarod, it's about all these other races. It's not just about racing, it's just about sled dogs. Like, I just adopted a new old sled dog from that ran Iditarod with me in 2020, and just people being made aware that they can get a retired sled dog that can just totally pass out on the couch during an hour and a half long podcast next to you, or they can pull you around while you're
yeah.
jogging or biking or skiing. It doesn't have to be a race, but Iditarod's like the leader in reaching the most people worldwide. I mean, to my understanding, maybe the
Mm-hmm.
Finnmark slope is they're competing
I think so.
in the non-US market, and but what we want is not just for Iditarod's success, it's for the whole picture. Is
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, with what you're saying there. It's uh I want to see young people like coming into the sport, and it'll be exciting to see, we got sign up day coming up here soon. We're gonna see how many teams are gonna sign up. It's also worth mentioning $2,000 off the entry fee is like, and that purse, I really like the way it spread out. It really, like, it gave everybody some, but it really beefed up top spots, like it's going to be a hot race, man. And I'm not acting like we're going to go out there and race any hotter because of money. Our dogs are our greatest, concern. And so to my competitors as well. And, but I'll tell you something that I thought about it. I had a whole different mindset of the way I was already planning the race for next year. And my whole strategy changed when the purse upped. Like, I won't be making mistakes. I'll be playing it very safe. I will not be trying to run away with this race, I'm going to, and you're going to just have all kinds of other competitive mushers that are like, hey man, if I go for this and then I end up, it doesn't work out and I fall back 2 positions, like I'm still gonna, go home like, okay, like, and be able to feed the dogs and for, another period of time. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And, the villages, you know, Mark Nordman takes care of the relations with her. Like, I wish as the champion that I could like be making it out to these villages and spending time with these people. Here's a little hot take, real quick. Let's throw something like wild out there while we're talking about this. Like, I have always had this idea of like Iditarod becoming, as much of an outreach, as it is not. I don't know. I don't think outreach is the right word, but like, giving back to the communities that we're so graciously welcomed into. Like little work things that we could do, like whether it be like a retaining wall from the ocean or like, that I think that this event, with, some open-mindedness could be way bigger and do a lot of good. And we could be going out to more schools and like more troubled youth, like in maybe kids in juvenile, like reaching out, through our passion and love for this race and sled dog sport and bring more money in like through grants that could do these things out in these villages and get us mushers out there and more involved with the community. And here's part of my hot take here where I'm going with this is I want to see PETA mess with that. Bring it. These communities have been such a part of the race, and I'd just love to see like the Iditarod become something even bigger than just, a race for a truck and $80,000. It's Alaska's heritage. It's Joe Reddington Senior's heritage that we like keep this vision of providing this place for these dogs that love this so much. And these, wood people from, that are mushers. Yeah, I think it's such a powerful thing. And I think there's, a lot more it could be. I hope that in my life, I get to see this still going when I can't run it no more. And I'm, done with my career. And I hope I get to watch, all those young people that I've got to watch in these junior races and be friends with coming up, racing and making this race even more. Because some of those kids that are, 18, 17, and 16, it's unbelievable the level they are at mushers, but also as ambassadors for the sport and their speaking abilities, and they're going to do, if we do a bunch, they're going to do so much more. And I like to think that Iditarod's future's just getting going.
Yeah, I feel like this, and it all circles back to this guy.
Okay, I got it.
Go ahead.
Shell Inga Rurke is how you say it. Shell is his first name.
Shell. All right. Yeah. So Shell coming in and getting this opportunity to do the expedition class, giving the race a large chunk of money, can be the beginning of what you're just talked about, Jesse. And so, I think everybody's really excited to hear more about that. And there's lots of questions, but there's also a lot of time. It feels like Iditarod 2025 was like a long time ago. It really wasn't, but I'm like looking outside and it's green and it's raining. And I'm like, you telling me the Iditarod was like 3 months ago? It's crazy. And so, yeah, we'll find out a lot more. You got signups coming up and Jesse, I'm sure you got, some dogs you gotta go take care of.
Hold on. Yeah. We got to circle back around because you brought it up, Jesse. So we got to circle back around. Our speculation. I mean, Sean, you and I are, I would say, same page.
Oh yeah. Well, he did ask us a good question.
Dallas is 100%.
Lock it in, dude. he hasn't told me or anything, but like
No.
I
He
mean,
Yeah.
got
when he
there's
first
no
started
way he's
taking,
no,
yeah,
he's
when he
definitely
first
back.
started taking a year off here and a year off there, he had his like, drama with the race in the late teens. And then he came back, and then he's been kind of doing every other year anyways. And then, and if nothing had changed with the purse or seeing if it wasn't on top of the fact that you and Matt and Paige were at this like, tier that was of performance that was pretty elite, and then he was out on the trail watching you guys and kind of keeping up, and he, I would think he'd be pretty fired up to hit the trail next year, and I would love to beat the best so that you can be the best. So yeah, I think we're all hoping for that.
Yep. Or be beat by the best too, I'm down to be beat by the best as well. That's the gamble you're taking, when you
Sure.
I guess, like I'm making a public call out kind of right now, like Dallas. This is going to be a big Iditarod. 2026 is going to be the Iditarod of all Iditarods, and he ain't going to want to miss that.
No, I don't think. I think you're right.
That's a good place. That's a good place to end.
Because well, the key thing to say in the call out too is like now he's racing the champion. He's not the champion anymore. So
yeah, just
maybe
people are
that'll
talking. People are talking. They're saying, "Oh,
add to his
Dallas."
desire to.
Yeah, we could. Well, I'll text Dallas. I'll say, "Hey, man, people are
Might
talking,
want-
and they're saying you don't have it anymore." No.
We know how much he's listening to our podcast for intel, so
let's go.
we're gonna be like, yeah, you might want to actually listen to this one. But no,
Well,
Sean, I was thinking maybe we transition to some of the like closer questions kind of
those are
thing.
questions. Yeah, sure. You want to start?
Uh, so
Here we go.
all right, so are you what's your routine when you're on the runners and you're training? Are you a music podcast kind of guy? Are you more of like you're a purist and you want to be able to hear the dogs?
I'm a purist, 100%. Never listen to music on a dog team. It's my responsibility to listen to the breath of the dogs. Like they're in such a unison that you can hear it. You need all your senses out there, in my opinion, to do this. I just did it on the longest route ever, and everybody said, "Oh, you better have good podcast and good music." And I'm just so enthralled by watching the team that I don't need the music. I need to be 100%, there in that moment. I paid all this money. I spent all this time to go out there and suffer every bit of the suffering. I don't need no distractions from it.
Nice. And I guess a follow-up to that would be, have you ever like, is there somewhere along the line that you discovered you're like, this isn't for me, or you're just like, no, I've just never done that?
No, I maybe, back when I had cellular service, like I've maybe played some music on my phone and like stuffed it in my like hoodie or something at the most, or like played it on a speaker for the dogs. I play music here in the dog yard for the dogs. Like sometimes I have like a little speaker on my belt buckle, like carrying it around. The dogs like it. It hypes them up, Like I've experimented with music like before runs, playing them different types of music for different types of runs. It's been a while since I've done that, but you know, long run, classical. We need to be chill, like some upbeat music for like let's go kill this 20-mile run.
Nice.
Okay. My question would be, this year you showed up with braided long hair. You've had short hair in the past. I think you've shown up with a long beard and a no beard and things in between. What would be in hindsight your favorite like feeling going into the race, like with your like was the long hair kind of a pain in the ass? Or was it kind of you liked the vibe?
The braids were sick, man. I love the braids. Like my handler Jasper, master braider, awesome handler. master braider, and I've got my same handlers coming back, Brian and Jasper. They're awesome, big part of my success. But like her braiding my hair, ready for war. Like you watch UFC, you watch fighters, like they wear the braids into war. Man, the Vikings wear the braids into the war. It's a statement and it's a feel. The statement isn't how it looks so much; it's how it makes me feel.
Nice.
I got rocking the braids right now. I've learned how to braid my own hair, dude. Like it's just a way of having long hair and it not being in the way. I think I'm going to grow the hair and grow the beard and stick with that because it's the mojo, man.
Nice.
Nice. I like it. I like it. All right.
Maybe the
Curious.
braided beard next year.
Ooh,
Ooh,
the braided
full
beard.
Viking mode.
Full Viking. All right. So I'm always curious about, I'm always impressed with the lack of healthy food that is consumed by a musher on the trail. Like everyone's talks about, oh, I eat like candy bars, I eat pizza, frozen this. Like, what's your routine with your food during a race? Are you like same way? You just got to get the calories in, or are you like a little more like health conscious? Tell me your routine.
Well, that's a great question. First off, eating's not very good for me, man. Like it's pretty hard for me. I have a bad thing they diagnosed me with when I got crushed under the house. They thought that I had crushed my esophagus because of what the MRIs were bringing back. And like, it was pretty grim little meeting, because we all thought I was out of the clear of the serious, serious stuff. And they come in and they were like, it was a pretty grim moment. But yeah, so I have problems eating and like my throat gets restricted and under stress. And, sometimes I can't get all my food down. And so one thing that like I wish I had had the year after I got crushed in the house was these drinks called Boost. It's a vitamin drink. It's got a lot of protein. I
Mhm.
got a bunch of those out there, dude, in case it acts up and I can at least get the calories in liquid. And even if I am eating good and everything's going real good on my nutritional plan, I'm going to be pounding those, man. I'm going to get every calorie I can because I'm ski poling constantly. I'm pretty active out there and I treat myself as an athlete. I cook all my own food. For a few week period, I start cooking big batches of like good food and I'll have my dinner of that and maybe I'll have one more meal the next day out of that and I'll vacuum seal the rest of it up. This year, big hit was had a bunch of moose ribs to work with, and I would Dutch oven cook them, big batch of moose ribs until this like they shred off the bone. They're so tender, and then I would make this mushroom onion gravy, and then I would make a bunch of mashed potatoes, peeled in, lots of butter, cream cheese, all the calories I can pack in the potatoes, and then I would vacuum seal that in a meal. I would do that with a brown rice sometimes. I started doing a lot of like roast and moose ribs, which I got cooked for tonight, with a red sauce. That's also nice, as long as it doesn't irritate my throat thing. And then I do a big salmon chowder, man, big salmon chowder. And then another shout out to Raymond and his dad. They hooked me up with some amazing dry meat that they make, and it's the best dry meat ever. Dried moose meat, and it's like ground and like made into these like perfect like things that I could make a Kerrygold butter sandwich. I
Mm.
had one piece of dry meat, a big thick spread of Kerrygold butter, the best butter. Boom, another piece of dry meat, and I'd make these bags in every checkpoint and put it in my parka pocket and a bag of dry fish. And then on top of all that, like I'll go get preferably a really good pizza place, like, but I ended up getting Domino's this year, time crunch. You can't always, be a Madonna about your food. The Domino's worked. Next year, I'm going to get some better pizza personally, but it's super thin. You can heat it up in your cooker very easy. That's, we vacuum seal these meals to where we can eat a home cooked meal out there. And I think a lot of people do that. I don't eat candy. I'm not into like big on sweets. I don't snack. So that's where the dry meat really came in big for me because I was able to keep my energy level up while I was on the sled. And then I would always have my electrolyte, Element Electrolyte. Shout out, dude. Where's the
Yeah.
sponsorship coming? Because all these mushers are going to be buying this after I tell you guys this. Zero cramps, man. I mean, I work my butt off out there. You're taking as good a care. Zero cramps. First Iditarod I've ever had where I'm not just like cramped up and messed up at some point from working too hard. You know,
Man.
that's been a big, and it's a real high sodium. It's a high sodium electrolyte. You know, if they're selling you electrolyte and you guys are buying liquid IV, no way, man. That's just sugar. I don't need no sugar out there. I need, you know, the proper magnesium and electrolyte balance. And I'm just going to continue to try to up my nutrition program, my training program physically, you know, lifting weights all the time, running all the time, hiking all the time. I want to get into more skiing. I want to keep that physical fitness up because I think that's a big part of my strategy. And some people can eat anything and feel fine, but if I eat processed, nasty food, man, it just makes me feel bad. I don't feel good. I mean, I like to, I'm all about that clean living life. You know, I'm going to take it back there because I never answered it. You're talking about Bailey and his ice baths, you know, like Jessie Holmes been taking ice baths since way back in the day. So shout out, dude. Good deal. Like I come home from running and I go down to the river and I get in there. You know, I'm not doing it so much in the winter though, like he is. That's pretty wild, man. Getting in there in that ice but you know, I get a couple week period where the ice on my pool, I have my own cold plunge outside of my sauna. I have a really nice sauna. I use it about 4 or 5 times a week, honestly, in the summer. And I got the time, and I have a big, it's deep up to my neck that I dug by hand and lined with reinforced visqueen. And I got my own pool, and I pump up crystal clear. It's 3,600 gallons, and I pump it up from the river, crystal cold and clear, and then I go from sauna to there. I'm not so much about just like going and like I'm going to be out in the cold and getting in cold water. That's pretty hardcore. So I see where he's going with it. That's going to build the mind because that's not something you really want to do. I don't really want to do. But when I'm coming out the sauna and I'm like really hot, like I'm either going in the snow or I'm going in the water.
Yep.
Nice.
So, you know, summing that all up together where it makes sense together is like I'm all about my health and well being as the musher because that allows me to be the coach that when the critical time comes down, which I thought was my strong point in Iditarod this year, it just didn't wear me down. I was always really alert. I didn't have those serious low points where you're just like falling asleep on the sled, which you think you couldn't do it without, you know? But
Right.
that never happened this year. So, you know, I'm going to really stick pretty close to what I've been doing.
And uh you mentioned the boosts. Are you boiling those? Like how do you not get those to stay frozen?
You got to stay alert all time so you don't like leave them in there while it's boiling. But, you know, getting in the hot water bath, I typically like, I have a big routine, you know, and we didn't talk about this. So I'm just going to throw this in there. Like, I like to pack my dogs all into a big, what some people have been calling the cuddle puddle. I like the huddle. You know, it's like we're all getting together planning that next run, taking care of the team. You know, they're all surrounded with me. I sleep with them in there. You know, I've, you know, really developed that over the last few years as a big part of my strategy. And so I'm there with the cooker right there. The first thing I do is get the cooker started, melting the snow. Priority number one is getting that hot water for the dogs, getting on that meal so I can get them fed, you know, within 30 minutes or or, or 40 of being there. And I try to bring enough heat that I keep it going, and I throw some more snow in there, and then it makes hot water, and then I put all my stuff in there. And the boost, once it heats up, before it'll start boiling, you pull it out, maybe let it cool down a little bit. I'll thaw out numerous ones for the run ahead. I'll thaw out my water bottle so I can fill my flask back up with my electrolytes. You know, it's really like racing's all about being efficient in those things because that's, you know, not only are you trying to have these dogs taken care of within 40 minutes, you're trying to have yourself taken care of within an hour and be able to lay down, you know. And I prefer to get an hour nap, you know. I'm not really down with like cutting it to 40 minutes. I don't see the point of that. I made a pretty big move to take the lead back because I was 4.5 hours behind out of my 24 in Caltag about, I think. And I took that back in a couple runs, you know, and people were kind of like, what the heck, man, this guy's really pushing. But I always kind of do that, camp a little shorter. And I guess I'm giving away my strategy. But like, even in that, like, I only camp for honestly an hour and 54 minutes or something on that camp, that first camp
Damn.
after running 4 hours.
Yep.
I laid down and slept for an hour
Wow.
in my sleeping bag.
Nice.
as well in an hour and 55 minutes. So don't tell me you can't get an hour sleep and a 4 hour rest, you know?
Right. That's
Sleep's
great.
important.
That's yeah. Okay. Who is one of your favorite UFC fighters?
Oh, man. That's a
Patty
good
the
one.
Baddy.
No, yeah, man. Hats off to Patty the Batty. He's killing it. But not my favorite, you know. But definitely looking forward to his next fight. I think I got to go with Charles Oliveira, man. You know, the guy persevered through a lot of adversity, you know, early on in his career, was getting choked out, knocked out, smoked, you know, and then he came back to be like have the most submission wins. You know, he's a Brazilian, you know, and he come from the Pavlos and like poverty and like built himself up and came back from those losses and had an incredible career. And he's supposed to be fighting Ilia Topuria, the knockout artist that moved up a weight class. That's going to be a smoking fight, dude, and it's happening in like 2 weeks.
Nice. Yeah,
Nice.
I've kind of dipped my toes in the water with the UFC fighting lately. Just enough people in my circles are into it, and I'm like, it is pretty exciting. Nothing like seeing a live fight, even if you're streaming on the TV. It's like, holy shit, what's gonna happen? You just never know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, they're awesome matchmakers. They matchmake this to where it's like you don't know. There's always like somebody could pull this guy. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look at what a big business it's become. There's a lot of like little models you could take, like to, Iditarod racing with that,
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, what's his face made that thing real popular. Dana made it real popular from nothing.
Yeah.
So that is a good point. All right, Brennan, maybe last question for Brennan.
Yeah. Your Mount Rushmore of mushers. So your top four all time. It can be
Oh,
this isn't like it doesn't have to be who's won the race the most. This can just be like the best dog person you've met, the whatever, you know. Let's hear it.
man, why did I not perceive this coming and put some thought to this ahead of time? I should have known, but I guess it's good that it's kind of on the spot, and yeah, that is such a tough one because I just have so much respect for so many mushers. Even all the field that I compete in now, I have so much respect for all of those. We're all just trying to make this thing happen, but you know, greatest of the greats, Mount Rushmore. I like really love the old school mushers so much, that like I feel like you know, throw some different answers out there than maybe we would hear before. Like let's say Joe Reddington Sr., man, the number one guy that, you know, that's him right there behind me. That's the trophy that's literally behind me. So kind of want to go with Joe Reddington Sr. because he was a visionary. He was such a visionary for the sport and he ran some incredible races throughout his, career in the race, while spearheading putting the race together. I mean, I think he was like 80 years old or maybe 85 years old and came in the top 10, I believe. I mean, that's legendary. That's the stuff legends are made of.
Damn.
And yeah, there's just so many people I'd want to include on this. It's really hard having four. So, I mean, I'm a huge Lance Mackey guy, you know. I love Lance's story of from struggle, near death, and just his family's legacy and history in the sport and what it meant to him and how it brought him out of those hard times. You know, I just really connect with somebody who struggled so much because I've lived, a life of struggle before to like, turn my life into something positive and like never go back, So, Lance is the GOAT, in my opinion, not Dallas. I think that he's the greatest of all time. What he's done is probably never going to be done again. 4 wins in a row, 4 Yukon Quest wins in a row, 2 of them overlapping back to back. I mean, him and Susan Butcher are the only 2 people to like win their first race and then win the next one. You know, after their first win, follow up with a win. There's multiple 4 or 5-time champions. So, you know, that's my second. And then Susan Butcher, kind of want to put on there because I feel like she was a big part of the change of the race, you know, with the dog care and, you know, focusing more on the health of the dog. And she was a 4-time champion, you know, in a tough era. I mean, man, woman, beast, that was a tough era of racing that they lived in. And, you know, now the race is maybe more high tech and more high fashion and, you know, more calculated, but like, I would never take anything away from those races back then. Those were some amazing races. And yeah, I'm just kind of running out because I want to put so many people on this, and it's heartbreaking to be down to only one more, you know. But, you know, I really always admired Rick Mackey a whole lot, you know, and his whole philosophy and, you know, his whole life, you know, like his family life. You know, he's just a really humble, like real true Alaskan. And he had some great races and consistency level and was like renowned for his dog care, which I hugely respect that because I always wanted to win this race and do it the way that I saw like I should do it, you know, and that's just my personal thing, you know, the way I want to do it with the dogs. It doesn't mean that the way someone else does it is good or anything, you know, like it's just my thing. So I felt like I really connected. I spent a lot of time over the coffee cup, you know, chatting dogs with Rick. And I feel like I learned and absorbed a lot. And like, so I'm just going to go on and like say my Mount Rushmore's got like 20 people, you know, Bill Cotter, Jerry Riley, you know, people that weren't even, you know, in the Iditarod, Lester Earhart. Like there's just so many great mushers and Joey Reddington, you know, like, man, and I've been so fortunate to have so many of these people be a part of my life that it's why I feel so inspired about what I do. Because it's like they're passing on the torch to this generation, and we got to make the stories now, and we got to make the future.
Amazing.
Nice.
Amazing. I was one thing I was definitely like that we should add to the list of regular questions. I feel like Brennan is your personal Mount Rushmore of dogs you've worked with in your life.
Ooh, okay, I like that.
Oh, wow. That's sweet, man. You know,
That's
you
tough.
want me to throw it out real quick?
Throw it out
I'll
real
try to
quick,
not
dude.
take up much time.
Yeah, sure.
What is
Yeah.
Hercules
All
on
right.
that
Well,
one?
It's
that's a
on
good
you.
one.
It's
I
you
got,
know, we'll say well, yeah.
dude, this is the dude. Like, don't you ever let my dogs listen to this, man. I'm not letting my dogs get access to, you know, this podcast. And I'm making sure that they're all asleep out the window right now and nobody's listening on me, you know. You got to go throw it back and shout it back to Tobias, you know. He was this like sprint dog leader I had. He was my best friend. He was on the boat with me all the time. Like he could free run 35 miles an hour. Like one time I was free running him back and forth from my fish wheel where I'd go into Manly, and he chased down a fox at like 35 miles an hour and killed it. Like he was just a beast of a dog. And you know, I wasn't a good enough dog musher to manage his like over driving ability that he always had from a young age, you know. Like he could have done so much more with me as the musher I am now. I don't know if he could ever finish the Iditarod though. He was just such a hard driving dog, you know. But man, that dog shaped my, you know, earlier things. And then this dog Rosa Parks, you know, she was the bomb, man. I wish I could have that dog when I was running Iditarod. And she's a foundational dog of like my genetics, which I call the black dog line. I have a lot of black dogs. Some of them they aren't don't come out black. They're like brown from that breeding, but like they're significantly been able to 5 generations of breeding produce these black dogs with these brown spots and white markings that are significant of my bloodline. And you just see her in those dogs today. And that's so mixed in with Clipper. Like, I don't even have Jeff King dogs anymore or CB dogs anymore. Like I've like mixed in like one of the best leaders I've ever seen. I just feel like if a leader like her could have been a big player in the race win, you know, this year. But I'll never know that because that was like 10 years back where these dogs are coming. And then, you know, Tempest and Emmett, Dude, they were pretty shaping in my career there early on. The hound mixes, and that's where I kind of got into mixing the streeper dogs in. Is I bought a lot of dogs from Jeff that kind of came out of that line, and a lot of people bought the other line. So I kind of got to work with those pointers, and their drive is just insane. Their desire, their competitive attitude is just nuts. And now I'm just gonna throw it out to Polar, Arctic, and Hercules. That's the and Zeus, the young man Zeus that's upcoming and taking this team over right now is just turned 3. Those are, gosh, those are super dogs. I will forever, when I look back, not think about how many trophies I won, how much money I made. I'll be thinking about those dogs and Odin. Like, gosh, man, they're just unbelievable. And then another one, Flash, who I got from Jody Potts, who and was the other critical breeding dog. So shout out to the dogs. Thanks you guys for including that. I think that's like a really cool one. And I would just I'd do it early on while you got the time because man, I think those lists of people for those dogs could be pretty big. Mine is.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure. It's hard to pick 4, and you picked 10, understandably, and I'm sure you
I
wanted
think
to
you
pick
made an
100.
entire team. Jeez, an all-star team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's really hard for.
No, but I mean, it's true. We only get so many of those special dogs in, our lifetime, and they affect us so much.
Well, yeah, we'll ask that one earlier moving forward. I think that's a great idea, and I think it's hard for Brendan and I to end this thing because we just love talking to you, and it's been super fun.
Dude.
Yeah, congrats on being an Iditarod champ, and thanks for being a great ambassador to Mushing, and looking forward to hearing about your travels this summer.
Yeah, thanks you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate what you're doing. I think, podcast is just a great way for our fans to be able to keep track with their favorite, mushers and learn from other mushers. And yeah, Sean, let's go pack rafting, bro.
Mushing, Alaska. And we also talk about other places besides Alaska, but mostly it's Alaska themed.